than it was from the way Watford played. Just your overarching feelings, Sam, walking out of Bramall Lane yesterday. What was that like?
Yeah, I think particularly in the last 2, 3, 4 years when Watford have lost games, particularly like that at Bramall Lane, where I think we've now lost 1-0 3 times in a row. The feeling coming out of a lot of those games has almost been a bit of a numb one, like we're used to it. But that was the first time in a long time I've been like absolutely fuming after a defeat like that. And I know it was only 1-0, and yes, Sheffield United I don't think they're bottom of the league now, after our generous bit of charity that we did to give them their first home win of the season. But yes, they are very, very, they're a good team. They got to the playoff final, 5 months ago? And I don't think, they are the worst team in the league, albeit they are in the bottom two. But I just thought we went there, immediately showed too much respect, physically lost our jewels all over the pitch. The lineup. I think we should just start off with the lineup first and foremost, because that's the elephant in the room. And to be honest with you, an hour and 15 minutes before the game, when it came out, I think we lost the game as soon as that lineup was announced, to be honest with you.
This was the Watford lineup that Javi Gracia went with in his first game back. It was Eagle Selvakin goal, back four of Ngakia, Caben, Pollock and Wiley, with a midfield two in front of the back four of Cipriano and Loser. Sissoko on the right. On SofaScore, they've kind of mixed up a little bit because Iran Kunda was kind of like pushing forward a little bit more, right, Sam? But Sissoko was on the right, Karim Gore up front, Kiembe and Iran Kunda. So judging by that lineup, I saw it as a sort of 4-2-2-2, like a typical Javi that kind of went at times to a 4-2-3-1 with Kiembe dropping in. But, as Ben says, that formation is so 2018-19.
Yeah.
I have to say, there was a real sinking feeling for me, Sam, when I saw this lineup come out at 2 p.m. And I did feel for the travelling supporters, because I think when there was so much build-up and so much hype around Javi's return and the nostalgia of it, and with the man we're bringing back, and we've talked about this on a number of podcasts, for that lineup to be delivered, I'd imagine there was a real deep breath in that away, and right, this is going to be a pretty long afternoon.
I genuinely think it killed it. Genuinely, that was a little. I think the atmosphere. I don't want to say it was completely deflated, but I do think that there was an element, like you say, there was a collective sigh in there, I feel like. And I think, I felt like the game was lost as soon as those lineups came out. And I think most Watford fans felt like that as well, at least the people that I went with. Almost saw Sissoko and Kiembe. And I hate, I've said this before, I really hate digging out players. Over the however many years I've been on this channel, Jacob, since Javi's first spell in charge 6-7 years ago now, I hated digging out players, but it can't go on with Musa. The performances week in, week out when he's playing is just every single week. He's so out of his depth to the point where at times I feel a little bit sorry for him, actually, because he's just so off the pace in this division, both with the pace of the game, the physicality of the game, and he's just not offering enough at all, which begs the question, why do managers keep picking him? And yes, you can speculate that it's not him picking, there might be influences from the outside having influence on the team selections, as we saw with Paolo Pezzolano and an article that came out last week on him, and we've seen other managers saying stuff. So potentially it's not him. We know who Musa's agent is as well. That could potentially have an influence on things. But I don't want to speculate too much, but I do not see why we keep on picking him. And I think, I know we're 7 minutes into the video, and often it does take a bit of time to get into the big talking points, but I think from a Watford point of view, performance-wise, he has to be the big talking point yesterday, surely. He's been the talking point for most people, I think, as well.
On the team selection, Sam, just before we get into that a bit deep, because I feel there's a wider conversation to be had about Sissoko, particularly, because since he's come back in, he's played probably a lot more than I thought he would. What were the selections and picks from Javi that you disagreed with? Because I have to admit, when I saw the lineup, I kind of expected a 4-2-3-1 that went into this sort of 4-2-2-2. And look, it is one game, and there's players coming back from internationals. That does come into the thinking. We can't deny that. That does play an impact on the team we see. But what were the picks that you would just fundamentally, that is a wrong selection from Gracia, and ones that we've actually maybe seen from Pezzolano before as well?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to the team that I picked when we did a video on, was it Wednesday or Thursday, I think, talking about
Mm.
Emmanuel Dennis coming back. So I think I said Selvik in goal. I got the two fullbacks. I said Kevin Caben would play, and I said I thought Max Alleyne would play over Matty Pollock. Particularly as well because I like Matty, and people know I'm a big fan of his. I just think I thought yesterday we could have really taken the game to Sheffield United a bit more, and Max is, I'd say, a better player on the ball potentially than Matty. And I think I probably would have gone with Max Alleyne yesterday next to Caben, who had a really poor game, by the way. Caben, really poor yesterday. So I didn't necessarily agree with that one. Then what did I say? I said it would be Kipriano and Loser. And then I thought it would be KB, Irankunda and Sissoko. I did think Sissoko would play and Kieran Gord up top. I did have that gut feeling Kayembe would play. I think we spoke about that as well. So yeah, I think the only big change I would have made would probably have been Quadro Bar starting. And I'm not sure if we wanted to talk about this in a bit, Jacob, but I spoke about this just before we came on. But what is happening with Quadro Bar? What is happening there with him not starting games at the moment?
Well, your guess is as good as mine, Sam. I mean, it was weird under Pezzolano, and I remember being at the Millwall game, and the away end were crying for Quadro Bar to come on, and he sort of acknowledged it in the away, and there was a sort of a look like, well, how am I not on the pitch? He's really just been used as an impact sub, and people say, well, is he better starting from the off, or is he better coming off the bench? That's a completely different conversation. Ultimately, should Bar be starting ahead of Musa Sissoko on the right-hand side? And I think you ask 99 out of 100 people, they'd say absolutely yes, because of what he brings to this Watford team. And I don't really need to explain what he brings to this Watford team. I said it on record, I think, at the start of the season that Bar at full flight is probably the top three one-on-one wingers in this league. I genuinely believe that. There's not many fullbacks that can deal with him.
Forget just wingers, Jacob. Top 5 players.
Do you reckon? I mean, yeah. But then Sam, at the same time, how much it's hard for me to make that big a judgment because we haven't seen him play regularly enough for me to say that.
Yeah. I think maybe top 5. I think definitely top 10 if Quadro Bar was at his best. But I mean, I think you're spot on with that, Jacob. I think I've said it. I can't remember which game it was that he started and just wasn't on it at all. It might have been QPR. I might be wrong with that. And I said, like, maybe there's a conversation to be had that he is better impact sub. But it's got me thinking that I don't think Bar in the last 2 years since he's broken through at Watford has ever had a consistent period in at least starting games. And I'm talking 5 starts in a row, be it through injury or selection. And I just think now when he does seem to be fully fit, unless, again, we're not being told something here, while he is fully fit, I just don't see why he's not starting games, to be honest with you, at least ahead of one of Sissoko or Kayembe, because it changes the complexion of us. Yesterday, like I said at the start, Sheffield United's league position doesn't tell the whole story. That yes, they were in the playoff final 5 months ago. You can't go there full guns blazing, but they are a team who are low on confidence. If we'd started quickly yesterday, the fans would have been on their back very quickly as well. Their fans are not happy at all at the moment with the team. But we just showed them way too much respect and didn't go for it at all. And I just felt if Quadro Bar was starting yesterday, that would have changed not only the complexion, but also the mentality that we've got someone who can break forward a bit. And I think this is early now, I know, but we're nearly in November now. So we are, how many games? We're about probably 10 to 12 games away from the January transfer window opening. I'm not too sure how many it is. But if Quadro Bar doesn't get sufficient minutes in the next 10 to 12 games over the Christmas period, I don't know him, but if I was him, I'd be forcing a move in January, without doubt. 100%. He should not be sitting on the bench. And I was surprised that I think the reason he didn't move on in the summer was because of his injury issues last season, but there potentially would have been interest there. We saw, was it Wolfsburg, I think last January, were interested in him as well. There was potentially interest as well in the summer as well. And there'll be interest again if he tries to force a move to somewhere where he will play, whether that's in the Championship again or somewhere abroad. I'm not too sure in the Premier League, but yeah, if he doesn't play, he's going to go, or he's going to try and move. And who could blame him? Who could blame him at all for that? And the same goes for Rocco Vata as well, because I think in the last few games, Vata keeps on showing as well that he's got something about him immediately. it's interesting actually as well how I've always say I love how people can watch the same game and see two different things. I saw Vic Bay who said, I can't remember the exact words, so apologies about this, but I don't think he was too impressed with Vata yesterday. I thought we were a lot better when Vata came on. I thought he was a lot more positive, got us up the pitch a bit more as well. And he needs to be starting games consistently as well. He's also never consistently started games for Watford. And the issue is, I think Javi was speaking about balance, or people are speaking about balance, or whatever. Sometimes I don't think you need to overcomplicate football. Sometimes, and this might be naive, and I've gone on a long rant here. Apologies about it. I might be incredibly naive here, but sometimes in the Championship, when you're not going up against, I don't want to be disrespectful here to Chris Wilder, but you're not going up against the likes of Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, Arteta, whatever. Sometimes when you're up against bottom of the league in the Championship, you have to play your best players and almost go from there, basically, and not overcomplicate it. And I just don't see why we are not doing that at times, particularly as well in Pezzolano's last few games against Oxford, who are a really poor side. Hull, who I think they got a really good win yesterday, but again, they weren't great against us either. Yeah, it's just baffling to me, to be honest with you. And we're going to have players who are going to try and leave, and understandably so.
Yeah, we'll get into sort of the wider discussion on Watford in just a second. I wanted to bring up a few comments, actually, some really interesting ones to what Sam was saying. Harry says, Barr deserves at least a chance to start. Think he is better as an impact, but what else can he do to get into the starting team? Ian says, with the upcoming fixtures against decent sides, it is a worrying situation. Mark says, Barr is definitely better off the bench, in my opinion. That said, against a struggling Sheffield United team, Barr should be starting. Sam, what did you make of, fans probably putting two and two together with what Pezzolano's team released about interference and certain players being selected? The three that were mentioned in that article were Sissoko, Kurumgor, and Duomo. Now, Duomo didn't play yesterday. Kurumgor should be playing. I don't think there's any, and I actually thought I quite liked his link up. I thought he got some decent areas, got a couple of shots off, and he's not getting a lot of service. For me, I think Kurumgor's one who will be a good player for us. I genuinely do believe that. I've seen enough to suggest that he will be good in a Watford shirt. Sissoko is where people are putting two and two together, because I think we can all agree he wasn't at his best today, and we don't like singling out certain players. But for me, anyway, Sissoko shouldn't be starting for Watford anymore. At 36, he had a brilliant career. I've got a lot of respect for Moussa Sissoko, what he's achieved into the game. But at the end of the day, is he the best option for Watford on that right? But at the same time, Sam, actually, before I tangent, what do you make of those people who are saying there was interference with that lineup? Not that we don't know, but if you had to guess, could you suggest that from that team yesterday?
Yeah, it's difficult. I think it's a conversation that you almost have to tiptoe around, potentially, because we don't know for sure. Everyone's going to have different opinions. What I would say is that what we've seen in the public domain is that I think it was Kike Flores in his second spell said there were people watching training and taking notes. Paolo Pezzolano recently saying something similar. Rob Edwards having an argument with Gioretta, trying to get him sacked. Rob Edwards was out the door the week after. So there's definitely some sort of, not definitely, of course, but I think you can infer from whatever's going on that there is some sort of interference there. And to be honest with you, I can't think of a reason why so many managers, with the amount that we've turned over, come in, and we're, as fans, it feels like we're seeing something completely different to what the manager's seeing, which is why they keep on picking Moussa Sissoko. And I saw a video floating around yesterday on socials of, I think, Jose Mourinho being quite frustrated during the Tottenham All or Nothing documentary, when I think he was thinking of dropping Sissoko, but one of his assistant managers said Sissoko is really respected in the dressing room. It was something along those lines. And without doubt, I think Moussa, his experience is probably valuable in the dressing room. I'm sure he's really, really respected. Like I say, he's had a good career. He was last time Javi Gracia was at Watford, Moussa Sissoko was playing in the Champions League final for Tottenham 2 weeks after our FA Cup final. Wow. So you have to put some respect on his name, because that was 6 years ago. But his legs it's just gone, and it's to the detriment of Watford. And I think even for Moussa Sissoko's benefit, he has to come out of the team, because I don't boo this Watford team. I won't. But I can almost guarantee you that if he's starting on Wednesday night against West Brom and that team's read out before kickoff, again, I'm not one of these to do it, but there will be boos.
Was he booed when he came off yesterday, Sam?
Yeah, it was very sort of sarcastic cheers when he came off. It was a little bit muted, but it was definitely there. I think I'm not sure if you picked it up at all, Jacob, but people were definitely happy when he came off.
I didn't hear it from where I was just at home, but I read on Twitter that there were a few people who did. I mean, just going back on, we'll get into sort of like details on the game as well, but just looking at the lineup, I think like just going through it and getting back up on the screen, right? It did just feel like square pegs in round holes. And ultimately, what Javi will have to learn very, very quickly is the 4-2-2-2. That is his bread and butter at Watford. And we know he's adaptable. That won't work with the squad that we have. I'm happy to say that after 90 minutes at Sheffield United. And look, Wiley scores that effort. It's a different game. Loser hits the bar, different game. We mustn't forget that Selvik made 3 good saves from what I can remember. The one in the first half from the corner. To be fair, it was a good save for the goal. Defending poor, but ultimately a draw maybe on the balance was fair, some would say. I mean, on the XG, Sheffield United had 2.1, we had 1.2. So maybe on another day we take a point out, and maybe it's a little bit of a different reaction. But I think when I look at that team on paper, and for people listening on audio, we've got the lineup here. I look at, if we just break it down from a tactical point of view, Caben and Pollock, right? You've got Caben there, who is a defender who is better when the line's a bit higher. Pollock likes a deeper line, and Pollock's better in a back 3. Now, Pollock was decent yesterday, but the point is, as a 2, that isn't your best 2. Your best 2 is probably a Banquer, and I would say Max Elaine. Personally, that's just preference. Then you look at the 2 fullbacks. That's the situation we have. Not a problem. I'm fine with that. Even though I thought Ngakia should have done better with the goal. He was caught napping and was flat-footed. Then I go into the midfield. Oh, we've gone away. Gone into the midfield, and Cipriano and Loser, right? I'm still not totally convinced, Sam, that works. I'm not totally convinced, and I'll tell you for why. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm not saying it's good. And Loser clearly, and I think it's pretty well documented from other Championship managers, he's been identified as one of the best midfielders in this division. We know it. Cipriano, I don't really know what his job is next to him. Is it just to sort of recycle it, give it to Loser? But at the minute, it just feels like an extra pass that we don't need to be making. What I will say in their defence, though, is when you look at the options in front of you, and Sissoko, who's playing back to goal, doesn't really want to take it, and that right-hand side in Ngakia and Sissoko is not technically the greatest. Karumgor's isolated up front. Kiembe, again, just really, I mean, he doesn't really want to take it on the half turn. Iran Kunda had probably his worst game in a Watford shirt yesterday. I just think when you look at this team, Sam, it just doesn't beat the eye test for me on paper. And I don't think it's rocket science to say it should be a 4-2-3-1. I don't mind to keep going with Cipriano and Loser, but that only works if you have a 3 in front of them who are going to create and get up and take the ball on the half turn and drive at defences, not play back to goal and not look to run in behind. And I think that's really my biggest frustration at the minute, because if you have Iran Kunda on the left, Karumgor into the middle, look, if Kiembe's in that number 10, not a problem. But then you have to have on the right a Vata, a Bar, someone who's at least going to cause McCallum problems, to the point where Ogbene, McCallum and them slightly worried. Do they bomb on? Do they drop a little bit deeper? Should Sheffield United have to play a little bit further up the pitch or drop deeper? We didn't really ask any questions yesterday for me, and that was the biggest frustration. What do you think of that midfield too, though? Cipriano, Loser. That was one that I'm still not convinced by yet.
Yeah, Hector didn't have his best game yesterday, and there's arguments there, of course, that he has been our player of the season so far, I think, or at least one of. So you can't be a little bit more lenient. But I agree with you. I think I want Cipriano. And he described himself as this sort of player, almost winning it back and giving it to potentially the more gifted, technically gifted players around him. Yeah, I just don't think it works. And you mentioned the 4-2-3-1, and I go back to what I was saying earlier about not overcomplicating things. This is surely where, as fans, we don't see what they see on the training ground. Because, again, most Watford fans would say that 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 is without doubt the best shape for this team. It's what we thought we'd see under Paolo Pezzolano as well, wasn't it? And we didn't really see it. And then that 4-2-2, 4-2-2 yesterday just didn't work at all. That midfield two, I don't think works, to be honest with you. Yeah, we just don't get. I don't think generally we get loser on the ball enough dictating things, to be honest with you.
Well, just
Either.
jump in, Sam. Just my biggest frustration yesterday, and I think this has been a theme. Sorry to interrupt. Of like the
Yeah.
last 3 or 4 years, there's been sort of there's been different managers, but there's been similar patterns of this slow, lethargic build-up where Selvik will pass it to Gaben or Pollock. It will go out wide to the fullback, go into Loser or Kiprianu, back to Selvik. And I'm not joking. There was one phase in the first half where we kept the ball for 2 minutes without progressing out the first third of the pitch. And you're thinking, we're playing in completely the wrong areas here. Now, to me, that actually suggests that the options in front of them aren't good enough in terms of the movement, in terms of are they peeling off their man? Are they creating space? Because it almost feels like this Watford team playing two teams. I look at the backs, 6 players, including the keeper, or 7, Loser, Kiprianu, and back to Ngakia, Kaben, Pollock, Wiley, Selvik. And Sissoko, Irankunda, Kurumgor, Kiembe feels like a completely separate entity. And there's no one joining that up. And I think I said it to you after the Charlton game on the first game of the season. And it was under Petzolano, obviously, but it was I think I said to you, Sam, on that instant match reaction, I think it's on the video, I said the number 10 for us will be the most important position. And it's probably gone to highlight how much we do miss Chatfordazzi. Someone who could take it on the half turn, drive us up the pitch, make us really link the midfield and the attack. And we don't have that. And someone did make a good point about Kiembe in the sense that here it is, Tim. Kiembe is a huge problem in that number 10 moment in the first half with 3-on-2. Kiembe just needs to slip in Irankunda and he shoots about 60 yards wide. Some people are saying, like Paul, Javi will stick with his 4-2-2-2. I'd put Mendy and Kipriani in midfield and Loser and Vata in further forward positions, personally, if sticking to that formation. But it just
I agree with that, by the way. That would be what I do on Wednesday. I'd do that and then stick Bar and Kurumgard up top together. I think that's what I would go with.
Because we don't actually have another. I mean, Semedo, Dumbia are our 2 recognised 9s, but they look like they're not really getting a look in just this season in general. And obviously not just yesterday. I don't know. Just on yesterday, Sam. Let's talk about the game before we get back onto the wider conversation. I looked at the momentum bar, which I always think tells an interesting story, and Watford in blue. And you see that sort of big surge at the end. There was one at about 60 minutes. We mentioned that. I think that Wiley chance for me was a huge moment. Really, really. I think that was before the first goal as well, right, Sam?
Mate, can I just say my head nearly got absolutely ripped. That shot went this close to absolutely taking my head off yesterday. I saw my life flash before my eyes. So much like the power on that was ridiculous. And I don't see how, because I was quite high up in that away end, and I don't see how the technique on that was all wrong. It was almost like it was the right position. It was the right pass. I can't remember who made that pass. Was it Sissoko or Irankunda?
Irankunda slipped him in, yeah.
Yeah, made that pass. It was just the wrong person, wasn't it? And just
Sam, you were sat in your bed.
God. I mean, yeah, it was absolutely, it was a shocking effort. And yeah, I'm thankful I'm here to tell the tale, because that could have absolutely wiped me out. That.
What do you think about people who are saying we deserve the draw, Sam? Because
no, you don't deserve. I mean, not deserve, but I don't like that idea in football. I think you have to. You're worthy of whatever you get. I think, unless of course there's a bad refereeing decision in there, or you have so clearly been robbed. But I think yesterday Sheffield United had a clear-cut chance. They took it. We had 1 or 2 clear-cut chances, and we didn't take either of them. And that's why we didn't deserve anything from yesterday's game, to be honest. And yeah, I don't think on the whole it was 2 good teams. I don't think Sheffield United will be coming away from that thinking, all right, we can. I mean, I'm sure they'll be thinking, let's get up the table now. But I don't think they'll be impressed at all by their performance. It'll just be that relief of getting 3 points. But yeah, 2 really poor teams yesterday.
Yeah, and I think Sheffield United knew this was a real opportunity to get a win.
Oh, Chris Wilder has said that as well. That soft underbelly that was there when he was there as well was still there as well, to be honest.
When you look at sort of the pre-match standings, they were going into it on 3 points, bottom of the league. And don't get me wrong, I do think that's a false position for Sheffield United. I think they will be comfortably, probably at least mid-table. But the point is that I think you're bang on about that. Was a real opportunity to give it a go. And Javi went with more of the conservative, experienced approach, which I think is getting it maybe a little bit frustrating for some people. I look at the sort of XG here, as we said, 2.1 to 1.1 for Watford, 3 big chances for Sheffield United, 2 big chances for Watford, 13 total shots. And I think it was just the 1 on target for Watford, which does tell the tale as well. Sam, what was missing then? What was missing in terms of the performance? Because we talked about the lineup and everything, but what was it about the performance that a lot of Watford fans are understandably quite frustrated about? Because I think, again, I do think, sorry, Sam, it has been amplified by the Javi hype. I do really believe it. I really believe that, because I think the way the coverage around Javi meant that I think Watford fans going into yesterday were quite buoyant at the fact of Javi's back, he's in the dugout, let's get a really good performance and result. And then when it is delivered like that and we lose, it almost feels tenfold how Watford fans would feel about that. And it just feels like maybe that feel-good factor is almost evaporated straight away. And then you're looking already at Wednesday night against West Brom, and that is a big game already for us.
Yeah. Because as well, you can potentially wipe off that game against Coventry next Saturday. I can't see us getting anything there, but the way that they're flying at the moment under Frank Lampard, although it would be very Watford to pick something up there. And if we don't get a result on Wednesday night, I think you're immediately going, well, that's 3 defeats in 3. We know how Pozzo operates. The pressure's on. I can't believe I'm saying that. I'm not getting sucked into that already, but I think it just shows the extent of how poor yesterday was. That I do think the pressure is always on Watford managers, but I don't want to get sucked into that. But it wasn't too dissimilar to Javi's first game the first time around, which was Southampton away in the FA Cup, and the disconnect from the fans to the players was almost as big as it was throughout the whole Pozzo era. I remember Jose Holebas trying to get into that away end afterwards to fight the fans, and the disconnect on the pitch and off the pitch then. And it does feel almost a little bit full circle, Javi coming back, and we're in that same position again. Then going into a midweek game, obviously last time it was Stoke, where we drew 0-0 away from home, shut up shop, and then beat Chelsea 4-1. Going to midweek game against West Brom. But what was missing yesterday, I don't think it's anything that we haven't seen already this season. I mean, if you didn't tell me Javi Gracia was in charge yesterday and you said Paolo was still in charge, I'd probably gone, all right, the shape's a bit weird, but he changes the shape every game and the performance wasn't too dissimilar, so fair enough. My one hope, and maybe I'm clutching at straws here, was that Javi was just using yesterday to almost assess the team. And we're going to see a real change on Wednesday.
Yeah, because to his credit, Sam, as Paul makes the point, to give Javi some credit, he's not had his full squad until Thursday. Yeah. Hence, probably, and I'm defending Javi here, probably the selection that probably did play a huge part.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised Aaron couldn't have played. To be honest with you, I thought it would be, KB in that position. So, yeah, it might be too early to judge Javi in that point from that point of view, but the issues in terms of no patterns of play, the communication defensively yesterday was an absolute mess. There was a moment in that first half where I think Ben was trying to shield it out of play for a goal kick. Selvik then came out to try and pick it up. Caben got on his way. Selvik got in Caben's way, and it was just and then Caben ended up clearing it, I think, and they both ended up screaming at each other. Just a mess defensively, a lack of communication all around, lack of patterns of play. You spoke about it really well, Jacob, in terms of it feels like, I think you summed it up perfectly. It feels like there's almost 2 different five-a-side teams playing. You've got the defensive five-a-side and the attacking five-a-side with no link between the two, and that's where we're missing Georgie, or someone in that midfield needs to step up. So, yeah, same problems that we've seen throughout this season, which just makes it more frustrating, I think.
Bike John in the comment section, really good comment this. I get the feeling Javi wanted to get the first clean sheet. We didn't seem committed to doing much with the ball. I think that's a very, very fair point. I think Javi went into yesterday with the idea of taking a point, and that would have been, I think we probably all would have taken a point in the grand scheme of it. Now, don't get me wrong, Sheffield United were there for the taking. Let's not make any stretch about it. But I think when Tommy mentions the point that we've got arguably the toughest stretch of games of the season now, we're honestly in a tough spot. When you look at the ones that are coming up before the next international break, which is only 5 games away, by the way, West Brom at home, Coventry away, Middlesbrough at home, Ipswich away, and then Bristol City at home. West Brom is looking like a must-win. Coventry is a free hit. Middlesbrough,
Got to win that.
We need to. It's probably a must not lose. Ipswich away, I think you take a point. Bristol City at home, win. So Sam, when you look at those 5, that point does feel. I mean, it can change so quickly. It can change so quickly. So we don't want to write anything off, but I think it does go to show the team selection now for me is such a big thing, right? Because I think there's 3 versions of Watford we could see that I think would be good. I think you either go for a 4-3-3. I don't think he'll do that. You either go 3 at the back with Wiley and Petrus as 2 wing backs, or you go for a 4-2-3-1. Now, I think he'll go for the 4-2-3-1 that goes to the sort of 4-3-3. And I think you go for a midfield. I would go with a banker and a lane, Petrus, Wiley, Luza, Kiprianu, and Mendy as a 3. Bar on the right, Iran Kunda on the left, Kurum Gore leading the line, right? I think actually, when you look at it, you go, that actually looks like quite a good team, right? Or Ngakia right back, whatever. Even Vata as a 10. Or you go for the back 3 and you put Pollock and Caben in the back 3 and you go with 2 wing backs. The point is, the lineup we saw yesterday, for me, is not one of the best 3 lineup options we can play. So that's my only concern. Well, there's other concerns, but my main concern yesterday, and we said at the top of the show, that lineup has to be sorted going into Wednesday night. And did you say that you think Wednesday's a must win now?
I think so, definitely, with the run of games that we've got coming up. And again, I think this is where the comms has come in this season, is that we've been told that this season is meant to be a promotion push and that it's going to be a top 6 push, and we're nowhere near that, if we're being honest.
We need to take a moment, Sam, just to actually reassess what we are as a team, because we have a lot
well, of course, but this is I said it last week as well about Paulo Pezzolano. Fans would have been more patient with Paulo if we weren't told that he was a promotion specialist, and this was going to be the year that we've assembled a promotion side, that we're going to really go for it in a demanding division, as Scott Duxbury said. I think Watford fans, we're generally quite a patient bunch, and we're quite happy. We're not, at least I speak for myself here, happy just seeing a competitive team fighting in the middle to top half of the championship every single week. We've been given this false illusion of a promotion push this season, and we're 10 games into the championship now, 9 or 10 games. The reason why this now feels like a must win on Wednesday is because of that narrative that's been portrayed by upstairs. So yeah, I would say it is a must win if we're going by their standards. I'm just trying to have a look, because someone did say in the comments just now about clean sheets, when our last clean sheet was in the league. I can't see one since we beat Hull in April, 1-0, ironically, a Moussa Sissoko goal.
I read, Sam, that we haven't kept a clean sheet for at least 10 games, which is a huge concern for me, because at least if you're not firing at the other end, it
looks like 16 games, Jacob, in the league, I think.
Wow, really? I saw it. It's in I didn't know it was 16 games, that clean sheet.
Yeah, including last season.
And look, if I'm thinking it from Javi's point of view, Sam, yesterday, I disagree with the team, but I think he's walked into this going, and he's looked at that and gone, when was the last time we got a clean sheet? I genuinely believe Javi would, because at the end of the day, Javi was a pragmatic coach. Let's be honest, he had incredibly talented individual players in his first stint here. Pereira, Delafeu, Doucouré, Capu. We don't need to go all through them. The level of that team was a top level, top. Probably, when you look at the best of the rest in that league, it was up there, and we should have really got Europe that season. No question about it. But ultimately, Javi came in as a pragmatic tactician who ultimately built on defensive foundations. Now, I think the first thing he'll be thinking come Wednesday night is clean sheet before we even go into not scoring at the other end, but ultimately he will want to be building a defensive foundations. Now, that's why I wonder whether he'll go to a 3 at the back. I wouldn't write that off. I really wouldn't write that off, because I think when you look at Petrus and Wiley, they can do that job. A Banquet, Elaine, Caben and Pollock, they can play in a back 3. And I just wonder whether he'll then go with that approach against teams like West Brom who are in the top 6. But that only works for me. That only works for me, Sam, is if you have an Iran Kunda on the left, a Bar on the right supporting Kurumgur, and you have Kipriano and Loser as a 2 in the middle. That's the only way a back 3 works, is if we do have that threat going the other way and we can counter-attack and we can be direct and we can offer a lot on the transition. At the minute, Watford is so slow. It's really slow. It's quite turgid where we move the ball. And I guess the word at the minute, Sam, is it feels disjointed. Even when I know a couple of my mates who aren't Watford fans said, you got rid of Petzolano after 7 points in 9 games, right? Why would you do that? And I was like, well, look, that doesn't tell the whole story. I think if you look at those 3 performances, Watford were disjointed in the way they played. There wasn't really any fluidity. Now, I was still even a little bit surprised that Petzolano went then, and maybe he's probably smiling the fact that Watford did lose yesterday. Well, even though he said he wishes us all the best this season, there's probably a part of him which goes, look, I kind of told you so. I've gone a little bit of a ramble. My point is that we just look quite disjointed, and I don't really know how you fix that unless you pick a team that is functional and effective.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And whether you blame Paolo Pezzolano or not, but it just feels like we're just wasting time. It feels like we've wasted an entire pre-season where you'll get these things ironed out in terms of patterns of play and players getting familiar with each other. And every single week, it's a new shape, it's a new formation, it's a new starting 11, chopping and changing. No one, hand on heart, could say that can predict the team come Wednesday or next week against Coventry. You ask 10 Watford fans, you'll get potentially 10 different opinions because we've seen so many different teams this season. No one knows our best team, and because of that, it's just having a really big impact on what we're seeing on the pitch. I had a friend who came to the game at home against Oxford who said to me when we went 1-0 down in the first 5 minutes, said it looks like your players have never played with each other before. And I thought that was a brilliant way of summing it up. It just looked like 11 players who had never played with each other. When he gets going, like I think we saw in periods, particularly in Swansea, in the first half, I think at times we look good. Southampton at home, I think at periods in the second half, we look really good. We just haven't seen it anywhere near enough this season. And I stand by it. I think we're close to a relegation side if we keep picking these sorts of teams and keep changing it than we are to a promotion team.
I mean, that's a bold statement, Sam.
I don't see, if there's no consistency with the 11, I don't think we'll be. I think there are a lot of worse teams down there. I think this could be a week now with the midweek game as well coming up where we see a lot of. I think next week we could see a couple of managerial changes in the Championship. Liam Manning's under pressure at Norwich. John Eustace is now under pressure at Derby, interestingly. There are a couple of others will still at Southampton. I'm not saying those teams are all going to be down there towards the bottom 3, but yeah, I just worry for us that if we don't start getting some sort of consistency together, and I'm not talking about results, I'm talking about selections, I'm talking about patterns of play, we could really get dragged in, I think.
I think it also gets exacerbated, that stuff, Sam, by the fact that we do have a young group. Yeah. And when we talk about patterns of play, that comes with time and it comes with regularity and it comes with repetition. But that is even more important when you have younger players who are developing. We're not talking about like 27, 28 season pros here. We're talking about a lot of young players. I mean, the average age of Watford squad must be around 23. Sissoko probably bumps it up because he's the oldest player in the squad. But ultimately, we're looking at around 22, 23 for these players. And it sounds weird, but in a weird way, what that pre-season was with Petzolano has kind of been, you bring in Gracia, who probably would have loved to have had a pre-season. And when Gracia was brought in last time, Marco Silva was the manager. And I remember Troy saying it was the best pre-season he'd ever had at Watford in terms of the coaching and everything. Everything had been drilled into them. And Marco Silva's a top manager. Like, we see the level he's gone on to. My point is that he had a full pre-season. Gracia then had a full pre-season with those players. So Gracia is walking into a team now which is so different to the one he took over. I think this is the bit that I think I'm having to remind myself is the team that Javi Gracia took over. It felt like it needed a few tweaks, and he would then get the best out of them, and that's what proved to happen. This feels like a few tweaks. It needs more than a few tweaks. It needs a fresh lineup. It needs a fresh system. It needs the right players in the right positions. It feels like quite a lot, and I just wonder if Javi will do it. And I think Wednesday night will say a lot about what he's learned about his team, because if we see a similar lineup to what we saw yesterday, that's a concern for me. I think the lineup will say a lot about what he's learned from Saturday, Sam.
Do you think he's under pressure already, Jacob?
I don't think. Do you know what? I'm genuinely being serious. I don't think he is. He is under pressure. I think the sort of Pozzo mantra now is 10 games. I think 10 games is when a decision will be made. And when I look at 10 games, it's 5 until the November international break, and then we have the Christmas period. It would have to be catastrophic for him to leave, I think, after the whole game, and which is mad to be saying, which is on January the 4th, right? And that's after the November international break. That is the next one, I believe. Yeah, because the Christmas period, right? So we need to give him time. We need to be patient as fans. The board ultimately have to be patient with him, because they've talked him up, haven't they? We saw the statement. The reason they brought him in was for harmony. It was for structure, organisation. I just really hope it's not Flores 2.0. That's my only worry. And I think Wednesday night, Sam, to sort of end it on a relatively positive note, is an opportunity to do that. And I think West Brom at home, that is a really big game for us. I think even at this stage, because people always be, as you said, Sam, 3 days later we go to Coventry, who are unbeaten so far and haven't conceded in their last 5 under Frank Lampard, and they look pretty much set again, unless it went catastrophically wrong, for promotion this season. That feels like a almost not a dead rubber. I don't want to say that, but one that Watford are definitely not the favourites for. And West Brom have been a little bit hit and miss. I saw them at Millwall. They were a little bit disjointed, as we probably looked at times this season. What would you change as sort of a more positive note to end on? Because we've been going for 45 minutes. And we talked, look, was there anything else on the game, Sam? I mean, in terms of loser hit the bar. We mentioned Selvik. The goal was really sloppy, I thought. Well, Wiley caught further up the pitch. The ball came across. There were appeals for offside, which some people would argue. I thought, but Ngakia for me on that goal was really disappointing, because it was just there was no reaction on the rebound.
Yeah, I watched the highlights back, but I didn't pay enough attention to see if it was offside or not. I think we covered most things with the game, to be honest. What I would say, by the way, is credit both to Sheffield United fans and to Watford fans and to the referee as well. Lovely tribute to George Baldock in the second minute of the game, where I think coincidentally the ball went out for a goal kick, and the ref stopped the game altogether, for a really nice tribute from both sets of fans and the players as well. So yeah, I think it was a nice reality check as well, that life is short. As frustrated as we are with Watford, life is precious, and we should enjoy it. But I think the best way to get over that defeat, I think Javi and the players will be delighted that we've got a game on Wednesday. I think they would have gone in after that Sheffield United game and almost would have wanted to play today, I reckon, after recovery. Of course, just want to get straight back out there and try and put it right. Should we do the prediction league, Jacob? We got 0 points. I think
I'm having an absolute stink.
we all predicted draws. Can we see that? I'll show you. I'll go to the table first as just a quick recap. So yeah, Jacob struggling down there. Jacob is bottom on 6 points. Charlie second with 7, and I am top with 9. Early days, of course, but we'll do our predictions for the West Brom game. As you can see as well, we all got predicted draws for Sheffield United, Watford. So we all got 0 points there. Charlie is actually in Barbados at the moment, so we'll get his prediction after this and add it in. But I rarely go first. I'll go first here, if that's all right, Jacob. I'm going to go. I'm torn between 2, because I could really see this going 0-0 and Javi just thinking, let's get the clean sheet here. But I think it's going to be another 2-1 home win.
I agree. I actually think we will win on Wednesday. which means we'll probably lose. But yeah, there is living up Barbados at the minute. We'll have to get his score prediction from the beach. I think he's turned his phone off. He's gone airplane mode for the holiday, and probably the best. He did tell us actually he was on a taxi home, coming back from Sheffield yesterday, and the taxi driver was ripping him for Watford are playing at the minute. And I don't think he was particularly happy after a pretty long day. Not with Sam, just in general. So Charlie's having a holiday, having a bit of time off. I wanted to read a few comments just to finish today, and thanks so much for everyone who joined us because it's not.
What score do you want to go with, Jacob?
I've gone 2-1 as well, Sam.
2-1 as well. Sorry, yeah.
He's not tuning in a hammock, maybe. I don't know. Charlie will be living it up. Let's have a few comments. As I said, it's a bit of a difficult one to analyse, to dissect. Charlie's seen enough and done a runner. Can we blame him?
Who can blame him?
Charlie's prediction will be. Bike John says, want to say it was a good atmosphere in the away. Not been to a game in years, and I was really proud of our fans, Sam.
Yeah, like I said at the start, I think there was I think it would have been better if the lineup was better. At least the people I was with, I felt there was a collective bit of deflation when we saw the lineup. But I think Watford fans, we've had a horrible time on the road recently. I've only in the last 16 months, I've seen one win away from home. The only away win I've been to is Derby. I missed that Borough game. I think Rio put something in further up. If you're still watching Rio, let us know the stat. But something like 3 away wins in our last 30 or something like that. And there's also another astonishing one, I think Rio said, which was we haven't won not wearing our home shirt in ages. I can't remember the exact number, but it's something ridiculous. So yeah, I think Watford fans were a credit to themselves. Huge numbers yet again yesterday in that away end, and yeah, credit to everyone who went down again. And yeah,
absolutely.
Looking forward to Coventry next week, but yeah,
well, the last time we were at Coventry was the Tom Cleverley standing in front of the away end game, which was in January, I want to say. Which that time has gone absolutely flown by. But that felt like a significant moment in the recent history of Watford, actually, and we will need a similar sort of moment in terms of result or significant result anyway to get us smiling again on the road. Ben says, I think he will have. Sorry, mate, go on.
No, I was just going to say, sorry, it's pulling up. We haven't won in not the home shirt since Cleverley's first game in charge. Emmanuel Dennis's goal at Birmingham. Probably all that white shirt. So every other shirt is cursed, basically. That's what we've learned today.
Incredible. Ben says, I think he will have learned Javi a lot and will change things up. We are at home. Even Paulo put 3 forwards on the pitch in his last home game. Tommy says, if we play 4-2-3-1, once Chak is back, we'll be good as gold. Rio says, I thought Selvik had his best game this season, brackets low bar. Charlotte says, Javi has Premier League quality players first time round. This time, he has a few old stages and some promising young players. It's an interesting blend of players. John also says experienced ex-pros talk about forming partnerships either in midfield, down the wings, between the forwards and the centre-backs. We are just not achieving that understanding with all the changes. Ben says he can't be under pressure and the club is picking the team. I don't think I don't think that's the case in terms of I think that was completely Javi's team, to be honest, yesterday. I think the formation says it all. Charlotte says we had an amazing start on the Silver Four here. His head turned by Everton. The squad Javi inherited first time is streets ahead of this one. Charlie Bush, good to see him, my man. I think we see a Flores 2.0 and he goes before the end of the jam window. Agree on Loser being captain. Loser should be captain, says Ben Sissoko. Shouldn't be skipper. Let's
end on something positive. I'm just trying to think of something potentially positive that we can end on. Because that does feel a bit down. I see Charlotte's comment here. We never won in that beautiful purple kit. Outside of Watford home shirts, Jacob, what is your favourite Watford kit of all time? Away or third?
What away kit?
I've got mine in my head. I know mine straight away. Is that AC Milan? That AC Milan shirt, that we had in, was it 2010 with Danny Graham in that shirt?
That is a great one. That is a really nice one. I think that was like a remake of one of the retro ones that Luther and Co used to wear. I'm actually going to go with the blue Football Manager 2012-13 away kit, and Matty Vidra wearing that one.
Right.
For me, that just screams him. I remember when Troy scored away at Hull. It was on Tuesday night, and it was like towards the back end of the season, and it was a huge moment. And I just remember him scoring that kit, and I love that one. I love that one. Do you know what? I think we're going to wrap it there. But thanks so much to everyone who watched, to everyone who commented. Read FX Pro from 2017-18. Tommy says, honestly, love our green kit this year. It screams Richarlison, that red one. It absolutely does. Let us know your favourite kit. Let us know your thoughts on Watford at this moment in time. Thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday evening. I know it's a little bit down in the dumps. We try to reflect how we're feeling about Watford at the moment. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it changes as quickly as Wednesday night at home to West Brom. I'm sure we'll be back later in the week talking about that one, and obviously commentary at the weekend as well. A 3-game week for Watford, which might have been the thinking from Javi Gracia. Thanks so much, guys. Take care of yourselves and have a lovely, lovely week. And we will see you on Wednesday night. If not, we'll see you later on. Take care and up the Hornets. You want?